name's Amanda and welcome to the 12th block tutorial in my Star Sampler Quilt Along With Me series. In today's video we are making our lucky last block in this series, and the one that I've left to last is this one. This adorable block is called the Aunt Eliza's Star. Don't ask me why it is called Aunt Eliza's. If you know, then please let me know and everyone else know, but that is what it's called, and I think it is such a darling block. So the construction of this block is very easy and very quick. We are revisiting making quarter square triangles again, which are the little star points in the block, and then we're just simply piecing it together into a 9 patch design using 4.5 inch squares in the center and around the corners. Now when choosing your print fabrics for this block, try and use some really great contrasting fabrics to really get the design of this star in the block. I think if you were to just use one print with your background, it will start looking a little bit like an Ohio star. And we don't really want that because we're not making an Ohio star. Now, as always, you will find all of the measurement and cutting instructions to make this block down in the description box below, and there is also a link to the pattern sheet where you can download it and print it off and follow along with it as you make your own block. So with the introduction to the block done, let's get into how we make the beautiful Aunt Eliza's star block. The fabrics I'm using to make block 12 include the Kerchief solid for my background, sprinkle in the colour Peacock from Cotton+Steel for my first print, and then print shop Meadow in Midnight as my second print. So to make the Aunt Eliza's block, you will simply need to cut 5 4.5 inch squares and 2 5.5 inch squares from your background fabric, and then 1 5.5 inch square from each of your print fabrics. Begin by placing all of the 4.5 inch background squares to one side for later on. Then on one side of the 2 5.5 inch background squares, mark a diagonal line with a ruler and pencil. Evenly pair each of these with the 2 5.5 inch print squares, right sides facing, and then pin into place. At the sewing machine, sew a 1/4 inch seam along the left hand side of the center line on the first pair of squares, and then feed through the next. Turn the squares around and sew another 1/4 inch seam along the other side of the pencil line on both pairs. Snip your joining threads and then carefully cut each pair of squares in half with a ruler and blade, resulting in 4 half square triangle units. At the ironing board, press each unit open with a medium to hot steamy iron, ensuring that the center seams are pressed towards the darker side of fabric. Then, quickly but accurately square up all 4 units with a set square ruler to a perfect 5 inch square. Next, to turn the half square triangles into quarter square triangles, mark a line across the back of the 2 lightest half square triangle units with a pencil and ruler. Pair each of these with the other print half square triangles, ensuring that the 2 print fabrics on each half square triangle are lying opposite to one another, creating an hourglass or X design. Pin the pairs evenly together and then sew a 1/4 inch seam along the left hand side of the marked center line. After feeding the other pair of half square triangles through, turn the units around and sew another 1/4 inch seam down the other side of the pencil line. Cut the joining threads and then again carefully cut the pairs in half with a ruler and blade, resulting in 4 quarter square triangle units. Press each of these units open with the iron and then patiently square up each one to a perfect 4.5 inch square. Once all 4 quarter square triangle units have been trimmed, lay them along with the 5 4.5 inch background squares into the Aunt Eliza's star block design. Starting with the top row, flip a corner square over onto the quarter square triangle unit, evenly lining up the edges and pinning into place. Sew a 1/4 inch seam along the pinned edge and then press the seam outwards towards the corner background square. Turn over the other background square in this row and evenly pin it into place. Sew another 1/4 inch seam down the pinned edge and then press the seam outwards towards the corner square. Continue piecing the next 2 rows of the block together following the same method, while ensuring all seams are pressed away from the 1/4 square triangle units and towards the background square units. Once all 3 rows have been pieced, turn over the top row onto the middle one. Neatly nest the 2 center seams with one another and pin them and the rest of this top edge evenly into place. Sew a 1/4 inch seam down this edge, ensuring all seams are lying the right way before stitching over them. Then gently press the seam inwards towards the middle row of the block with your iron. Next, turn over the last row of the block, neatly nesting the center seams once more. Pin these seams and the rest of the edge evenly together and then sew one last 1/4 inch seam along it. Press the seam inwards towards the center of the block once more and then give the finished top of the block a good final press. Then to complete our last block, patiently square it up so that it measures approximately 12.5 inches square. Now, because this is the last block that we are making in the series, the next couple of videos aren't going to be block tutorials. We are going to be moving on to piecing together our quilt top, and then we're going to baste it and quilt it and bind it and label it and then finish it. Hurrah! It's been a long time coming, but we're slowly getting there. So look forward to the next video in this series where I will be showing you how to piece all the blocks together to create our darling quilt top. I'm still actually in the planning stages of how I'm going to piece it all together and show you the type of quilt top that I want. I haven't quite made up my mind of the layout and if I'm going to add sashing and borders and stuff like that, but I will very, very soon because I'm going to have to film it soon, so watch this space. As always, keep on sharing all of your blocks with me using the social media links that you can see on the screen right now. Usually Instagram is the best place for me to see it. Just hashtag your quilt blocks using the hashtag Amanda's Quilt Along, or just tag me at 3 3/4 on Facebook. So until the next video comes along in the series, thank you all so much for watching and I hope to see you another time very, very soon. Bye!